Hello everybody and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Video Clips. Actually the only edition of Video Clips we're going to have this week because it's Thanksgiving week, and I think that you probably would rather be eating turkey or vegan turkey with your family than listening to me on Thanksgiving. So anyway, lots of stuff to cover. This will be a little bit different format because I have some news updates to give you and also some really good questions that got posed on that you guys posted comments about on the channel after Dr. Bragan's video and Dr. Stanger's video that I thought would be interesting to cover and way too much for me to write. I talk better than I type, so I just thought I'd answer them here. So just to start, for those of you who weren't with us at our conference, you got a taste last week of some of the things that happened because you got to hear Dr. Bragan doing a very interesting talk about the school shootings and Dr. Stanger talking about bone broth and understanding how your body works and that sort of thing. And next week we'll have I filmed some other videos too that I think you'll be really interested in, and I'll scatter those through the next few weeks. But we did videotape the conference, and if you're interested in watching the videos online, you can subscribe. And I did not get to see all the talks myself because I had other things to do, plus I was doing a breakout session while other breakout sessions were going on. But I will be watching the videos this weekend because I just heard everything was extraordinary. I mean, everything I saw was extraordinary, everything everybody else saw was extraordinary. An important update, we'll get to some updates now, on the Peter Gertsch situation in Cochrane. While the conference was going on, and this kind of made things interesting around here, Dr. Gertsch and Dr. Bragan and I ended up having some very long conversations about what to do because we really think it's important for scientists to be able to speak out about things and to keep the conflicts of interest out. And Dr. Gertsch's dismissal from Cochrane for wading into areas that are inconvenient like vaccines and psych drugs is just a despicable thing that never should have happened. So the long and the short of it is, and by the way, Dr. Gertsch is fairly certain that he's going to be dismissed from the institute where he actually has his practice and teaches. So we decided to start a new organization called the Institute for Scientific Freedom. We've scheduled our first conference for this new organization in Copenhagen on March 9th. So I'll be sponsoring this conference with Dr. Gertsch and Dr. Bragan. We, right here in this office, reserved the domain names and put everything together. And I guess it's starting to be real because I actually made a hotel reservation. I'm going to Copenhagen to give a talk along with Dr. Gertsch and Dr. Bragan and some other very important scientists about scientific integrity. That's really the focus of the conference. So I'll keep you posted on this. It's going to be really interesting, and we think it's important that Dr. Gertsch continue his work, and we want to support him. That's part of what this is all about, and I'm willing to get on a plane and go to Denmark. I've always wanted to be there anyway. I mean, I'll turn this into a fun trip too, but I'm going to be in Denmark supporting him and giving a presentation and launching this new group. So now some answers to questions that you guys posed that were really good. So the first one came in response to the bone broth video with Dr. Stanger. And the question was that meat has all of the amino acids, all of the essential amino acids in one place, and plants don't. And I won't read you the whole inquiry, but I just want to tell you some things about amino acids to get rid of the confusion about essential amino acids and the necessity to consume them all at the same time. By the way, the myth about that started many, many years ago when Frances Moore Lappé wrote a book called Diet for a Small Planet. And in that book, she talked about the essential amino acids having to be consumed all at the same time. And so you would combine beans and rice if you were going to not eat animal foods and this sort of thing. Well, that all fell apart. It turned out not to be necessary. And she even corrected it in a future edition of the book. But unfortunately, once something gets out there, it's really hard to dial it back. And so people still carry this idea that you have to consume all the essential amino acids at once. But if you understand how your body digests and uses amino acids, I think we can debunk all of that. So essentially, digestion is a deconstruction process. You eat food, and your body breaks it down as it goes through your GI tract. And so when you eat protein, it's broken down into peptides and polypeptides, and I'm simplifying things here just to make it easy to understand, and then into amino acids. And your body directs the assembly of amino acids to make hormones and enzymes and various things. And then once an enzyme performs an action, it's torched and the amino acids are released. And you recycle your amino acids. This is one of the reasons why it's really hard to be protein deficient, is because all of the amino acids that you consume every day are not excreted after being used. It's not the same as glucose that goes through the Krebs cycle and then it's like the gas. You have to put more gas in the tank. You have to put more glucose in the bloodstream. That's not the way that amino acids work. So the amino acids then get reused again, and they're used several times before they're excreted and broken down and excreted. So it really doesn't make any difference whether you consume them all at the same time or separately or whatever, because it's all of that's going to be broken down, and then the amino acids will be used as directed by the body to make or perform whatever function the body directs them to perform. So doesn't matter if you eat them all at the same time, they're all going to be broken down into their constituent amino acids anyway. So no reason to worry about that. And then another person wrote a very thoughtful comment about Dr. Bregan and the school shooters when he was talking about one thing they have in common is they're all under the care of psychiatrists at the time that they commit these terrible acts. And many of them are on the drugs. And Dr. Bregan has seen the files of these people, and he knows this. So the comment was that, yes, many of them may be on the meds, but a lot of times they're not compliant on the drugs. And that probably is true. However, in some cases, the drugs have been found in the bloodstreams of the people who have committed these terrible acts. But I want to comment on the fact that bring everybody back to the idea that these people are under the care of psychiatrists who are supposed to be mental health professionals. So you would think that if the kid who did the Parkland shooting in Florida, that if he had violent tendencies, that the mental health expert that he was seeing would have seen that coming and done something to intervene. And that's not what's happening. So they're under the care of psychiatrists at the time. They're in the mental health system at the time that they're performing these acts, which I think goes to the complete failure of the mental health system to address mental health issues. The concern is no longer talking to people and trying to help them sort out their situations. It's just drugging them and seeing them for very short periods of time. And psychiatrists are really not very good at determining who needs help and who doesn't. Some of you may be familiar with the Rosenhands experiment that was done many, many, many years ago, but it just goes to the point. This researcher by the name of Rosenhands recruited perfectly normal people to go to undercover to mental health institutions and the mental hospitals and claim that they were hearing voices, I think it was. And that was the only thing they said is, lately I've been hearing voices, and then the family member, person posing as the family member would say, yeah, we're really concerned about it. So all of the people were admitted to the mental hospital, even though there was nothing wrong with them. And then they were treated as mental patients. And you know who figured out that there was nothing wrong with them? The other patients. Eventually, they figured it out. They said, there's nothing wrong with you. And the psychiatrists who were providing therapy treated them as if they were mentally ill and never caught on. And so this was made public. I mean, it was a very embarrassing episode in the history of psychiatry. You're a psychiatrist. You're claiming that you're a mental health expert, and you really don't know the difference between the inmates who are in the mental hospital who are really mentally ill and people posing as people who are mentally ill. So I think the bottom line is that we probably need to acknowledge that our mental health system needs to be changed in significant ways, because referring people when all the talking heads get on TV after one of these terrible things happens and says something like, we got to get people into the mental health system earlier. I don't really think that's going to help, as inept as it is right now. I think we have to reform the mental health system before we start getting people into the mental health system. So anyway, that's my comment about that. So yes, it's true that many of them aren't compliant on their meds, but as you saw in the video, Dr. Bregan said that the Parkland shooter, they actually, Children's Services, I think it was, checked him out, and then they left him alone because he was being cared for at a mental health facility. So got it covered was basically what they concluded. And isn't that sad? The other comment that showed up that several of you made, and I think it's worth responding to, is the idea that Dr. Bregan had mentioned that that one of the contributing factors, not the only one, but one important contributing factor to these terrible events is the fact that there are violent videos that essentially, kids are rewarded by how many people they kill. It's a video game, but it doesn't make any difference. It's really desensitizing people to this type of thing. I'm not sure 6-year-olds should be playing games where the objective is to kill the other side. And so many of you said, and it's true, well, they have these things in Japan and other countries, so why isn't the rate of violent acts the same? And I think that's a really valid question, and I'll tell you what I think, and I've heard Dr. Bregan talk about this too. I think that the culture in these places is quite different than it is here. Kids are much better supervised in other countries than they are here, significantly more. One of the books that I really enjoyed reading about this was A Disease Called Childhood, written by a psychologist by the name of Marilyn Wedge. And she talks about the fact that in countries like Finland and France, the incidence of attention deficit disorder is significantly less than here. And one of the reasons is the way that parenting and education are done in these countries as opposed to the way that we handle those things here. And she talked about the fact in the book that by the age of 2, a child in France is expected to be able to sit at the table and be quiet in a restaurant with his or her parents. And the French culture is such that they don't like the idea of the a term for it is enfant roi, which is French for the infant king, where the child becomes the center of the universe and the center of the household. And gosh, children need a lot of attention, but they probably get a lot of the wrong type of attention here. They're given way too much autonomy. So it's one thing to have these types of things available in other countries, but it's a whole other thing to figure out the family dynamic and factor that in. The fact that it's available doesn't necessarily mean that all children have equal access to it, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's some important family and cultural differences between the United States and what kids are allowed to do here versus the way that parenting, family culture, et cetera, is done in some of these other countries. So there is a lot more to it than that, but I felt that the comments were really good that you guys posted, and I wanted to respond to them. And now that I've said all this, you probably understand why I didn't decide to type it all out, because that would have been an enormous amount of work, and I don't type really well, so that's why I'm telling you. All right. The last thing I want to talk about today is that this week is Thanksgiving. And so I have a couple things to say about this. I mean, I always say before holidays, kind of chuckling, don't eat anything I wouldn't eat. But I'm going to give a little bit more advice today about some other things, or make some commentary about other things. And the first thing is, if you're going to be spending time with family and friends, this is a time to enjoy being with family and friends, not to proselytize about your diet. And I can't overemphasize the importance of this. You know, many of us here who work at Wellness Farm Health eat a health-promoting diet, and we're going to be having dinner with some carnivores. I mean, all my family dinners are with carnivores, because other than my dad, everybody else is a carnivore. so anyway, I think we don't want to lecture people. It's not the time to bring it up. I think we have to wait for teachable moments, and so I teach by analogy, and so I'll give you an example of how this would look if some people did the same things in another area that they do with diet. Let's say that you found a new accountant and you just love this guy, and he saved you a bunch of money on your taxes, so you want everybody to know, I found a great accountant. Well, let's take it a step further. Not only did you find a great accountant, you want everybody that you know, who you know, to get their taxes done by this accountant. And you just won't shut up about it already, all right? So you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table saying, but I don't think you understand how much money this guy saved me. I'll tell you what, I bought my appointment book. I'm going to take you to my accountant. Let's go on ahead and open up your appointment book, and we'll get an appointment. I'll call him on his cell phone just to make sure I get you in there. People would think you were nuts, all right? And so I think it's really important we don't go that direction with the food, and wait for teachable moments so that people feel comfortable approaching us, not oh my gosh, that's kind of overbearing. I never want to talk to this person about food. So that's the first thing. The second thing, make this a healthy Thanksgiving holiday. Start with some exercise, eat good food, pick something that you're going to treat yourself to. Mine is always a piece of sweet potato pie, which we make in the kitchen here, and it's to die for, and it's so worth it. So that's what I'm going to do. You might have something else that you want to eat, but it doesn't have to be an entire day or an entire weekend of gluttony. So make a resolution that you're going to keep your good habits in spite of the fact that you're having a celebration. And last but not least, let's remember what the celebration is all about. It's about being thankful for, first of all, living in this great country where we have a lot of freedom. I mean, think about what it would be like for a woman like me to live in Pakistan. I probably would have been assassinated a long time ago, right? So let's be grateful that we live here. And I think it's also important to make a list from time to time about all the other things that you're grateful for, because if you're in a state of gratitude, it's really hard to be negative and miserable. It really is. Try it sometime. Feeling grateful for all the wonderful things, even if you have some negative things going on, and try to be angry and upset while you're talking about all the things to be grateful for. So I'll tell you some of mine. My dad's in his late 80s, and he lives in Columbus, and he doesn't take any meds, and I get to see him a lot. That's something to be grateful for. My father's side of the family is here in town, and they're fun people, and we have great family gatherings, even though they're carnivores, and I'm grateful for that. I have great friends who I can count on. I work with wonderful people here. I love what I do. It's not like work. I have a lot of passion for not only my work, but a lot of other things like reading books and theater and dance and music and many things. I love running and hot yoga and our gym. I love my house and my cat. I love where I live, and some of you have heard about Schroeder. If you take classes from me, you probably actually heard from Schroeder because he contributes to the conversation from time to time. And I have lots to look forward to every day and every year. And so when I take time to think about these things, actually when I was writing these down, just so I remember what to tell you, I found myself smiling just when I was writing them down. You just cannot be angry, negative, or have anything terrible in your mind if you're coming from a place of gratitude. So those are my thoughts for today, and we'll have some regular programming interspersed with some great conference interviews that I did while I had some great people here for the 4 days. And enjoy your holiday, eat good food, exercise, stay healthy, and I'll be back to you next Tuesday with more news.